everyone. My name's Bill Mattel. I work for Johnson & Johnson. Best company in the world, in my opinion. Got some of my fans out there in the audience, IT fans, to back me up on this. So just a quick background on me. I'm not an IT person. I come from make and engineering. So I'm currently involved in system support, primarily with Maximo. Just kind of a quick history on my background. When I was younger, I was very, very left brain. Maybe a lot of you are too, or were. But as time crept up on me, I became more and more right brain. So more in touch with the people side of things and, you know, people's feelings and what drives people's motivations and things like that. So that's kind of where I am now. So I think this presentation will kind of reflect some of that. So today we're going to talk about data silos, the convergence, and some conclusions with a couple of stories in between. So let's talk about data silos for a minute. So, manufacturing process and sterilization data was our responsibility. All right? Maintenance and asset data was, you guessed it, our responsibility. Engineering data and documentation was, you guessed it a second time, our responsibility. Building and maintaining data silos was, I'm not sure why, but it became our responsibility. So we had to take accountability for those. So what is a data silo? A data silo is a group of raw data that's accessible by one department or one organization, but fairly isolated from the rest of that organization. So it's a technology issue, utilizing the proper and advanced technology, and also making sure people are trained to access that. Also, you have the issue of organizational growth. The difficulty passing data between multiple sites or organizations is always a challenge, right? Organizational structure and issues, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that in a moment with regard to J&J. And then also internal competitiveness, which is not always a bad thing, right? So the data silos that we designed and built because we required them. We had to have them to run our business. Business units were acting independently while trying to achieve organizational goals. So there's no harm in doing what you're supposed to do, right? You know, that's your task. It's in your goals and objectives. Silo connectivity was difficult, costly, and sometimes overzealous. Still, a strong presence of paper and non-digital work existed, which creates all types of issues, including compliance issues. I don't know if anybody in here is in the compliance or quality arena, but we're all familiar with those challenges that we always have. And obviously, our culture was not digitally acclimated at that time. So this is quite a bit of an eye chart, and I'm not going to go into this in detail, but you can see that in one site, for instance, you might have all these systems and all these requirements in that one site. When you multiply that times hundreds of sites and many, many franchises, it gets very, very complex very fast, right? I see our IT people nodding their head, yes. So how do we manage this? Now I'm going to divert for a little bit and ask you some questions. How many of you own pets? Raise your hand. All right, a lot of you. Nationally, my information, my data says 70% of you own pets. How many of you know how much pet hair is lost by a pet on a daily basis? Raise your hand. Now I researched that as well, and the answer is 25%. Not 25% of the pet hair is lost every day, but 25% of you know how much pet hair is lost, plus or minus. How many of you own a vacuum cleaner of any kind? Raise your hand. Most of you, right? Not everyone, but most of you. How often do you vacuum your house? 1 to 2 times daily, or sorry, 1 to 2 times weekly is the average. I know people that vacuum every day, maybe even twice a day, but then there are also people that vacuum once every 2 to 4 weeks, right? How many of you, raise your hand, if you own a robotic vacuum cleaner? Wow, I expected this. So you're obviously, because of the group that we're in, much higher than 10%, and I'm glad to see that. But I want to tell you my story, my journey. So what's driving my attitude towards technology? So years ago when the robotic vacuums first came out, I heard about it, I saw it, I saw advertisements for it. A little bit pricey, at least that was my understanding. Maybe they weren't. Wasn't so sure how effective they were versus doing it the old-fashioned way, right? I know that it gets clean if I do it, but if the robot does it, I'm not so sure. So then I was lucky enough through a J&J incentive program to have a choice to buy something in the catalog. And so I said, well, I'm kind of cheap, so I'm not going to really pay for a robotic vacuum, but it's one of the choices in this catalog that I can get basically for free. So that's what I'm going to choose, and that's what I got. So we ordered it. It finally showed up at our door, and my oldest daughter, who's 20, she wanted to help me set it up and set it up on the Wi-Fi and everything. So that was cool. So we set it on a schedule to run every morning at 10 o'clock. So it started running every morning at 10 o'clock, and it was great. We had to get used to it. Our pets had to get used to it. We have 3 cats, so it took a little attitude adjustment on their part. Now, of course, they ignore it. I'm not sure what your pet's reaction to it is. So I got really excited about this, and I'm like, wow, this is great. We don't have to manually vacuum anymore. This is fantastic. Why didn't we do this like 20 years ago? So I got so excited that it ran every day at 10 o'clock in the morning, but I manually ran it 2 additional times per day because I was so excited about it. And it was still picking up pet hair on the 3rd go-round each day. So I'm like, where is all this pet hair coming from? I'm not sure. So then I noticed that nominally it runs 2 hours per session, and it started running like an hour and 45 minutes, started running an hour and a half, even got less than an hour and a half, so I'm like, this isn't working out too well. I think something's wrong with the battery. Well, come to find out that because I was running it 3 times a day, it didn't give it enough time to fully charge before the next session. So I didn't know that, so I called customer service and I said, what's going on with this? I think I need a replacement battery. Can you send me one? And they obviously gave me some reasons why they shouldn't do that. So I said, okay, well, I'll just, figure it out myself. So a light came on and I said, gee, maybe I'm running this thing too often. Maybe it's only designed to run once a day. So we let it run on the schedule. We didn't manually run it anymore, and it did great. So the reason I'm telling you this story is because I wasn't really excited about the technology. And I think we have 2 brains. Other than the left and right brain, we have a work brain and we have a home brain. And they operate sometimes differently. Some of you may be exactly the same at work as you are at home, but a lot of us are not. We have different attitudes towards things. At work, you may go with technology because you have the money, you have the management support, you have all this other stuff. But at home, you may be like me and say, well, I'm kind of cheap. I don't want to really pay for technology, even if it's good. And I wasn't really convinced it was good, but obviously now I am. So, what I'm trying to talk to you about is our attitudes towards technology. And my attitude towards that robot, I probably should have bought it many years ago because it's such a great invention, in my opinion. Hopefully all of you that own one agree. But we have to be open to technology, and we have to be willing to take a chance and take a risk. Obviously at work, but also at home. So now everything at home is connected. We have washers and dryers and TVs, and everything's connected to our Wi-Fi, stealing all of our bandwidth, right? So we don't have any bandwidth left to work at home, right? So this is just kind of going back in time a little bit about the time before the internet, the time before smartphones, talking about Gen Z and so forth. I have been told, and I don't have any data to back this up, but I've been told that, and I have two teenage girls. One's 20, but I call her a teenager. And I've been told that a teenager's worst fear is not the loss of a family member, is not the loss of a friend. What do you think it is? Loss of their smartphone, absolutely. So, okay, Uncle Johnny died. Okay, well, so sorry about that. But if their smartphone is lost or broken or is taken away from them for some reason, they're going to be devastated. And I think most of you would agree with that. For you younger people in the room, maybe you can actually relate to that. I don't know. So this is just giving some additional history, talking about the silos. As time went on, the technology got better and better. Processes improved and matured. Work was beginning to push for more remote operations. Asset health and reliability was becoming a thing. Silos did still prevail in certain situations. Data became a big topic, and we started calling it big data. Clouds were being considered. IT and OT was finding common ground. So, one of the things that we really need to, in my opinion, keep an eye on is I've heard situations where people look at a screen and say, well, that machine's running. According to my screen, the machine is running. Well, they're up in the office or they're at a different site monitoring that machine. The machine may or may not be running, all right? So we have to have some certain amount of confidence in our system. I've heard numerous examples of where, issues were created when we thought a machine was running and it really wasn't, or some other device, and it caused issues. And I know of situations where machines might be running, and it shows that they're running, but there's no product in the machine. So it's not making any product, but it's counting production. So obviously that's not good either. So the point is, which one do you rely on the most, the physical or digital? I think a lot of people now, they put more confidence in the digital information more than the physical. They don't necessarily take the time to go out to the laboratory or the production floor to say, oh yeah, this machine is running, or have some type of system that ensures that everything is working the way it should to report whether it's running or not and what speed it's running and so forth. So, I think it's important to have those controls in place to make sure that what the information we're receiving is actually correct. Sometimes I think we get too dependent on digital and forget about the physical. These different areas, most of you are familiar with these. I'm not big on acronyms, but these are some areas that you're familiar with. Asset integrity management, asset lifecycle information management, et cetera. All these different things, are focus areas for us. And they're important, they're valuable, and we certainly need to take advantage of them. So in conclusion, Johnson & Johnson, I think we have a good approach to technology and to asset management. But I think you need to remember, and you need to sometimes look inward and say, what is my personal attitude towards technology? Yes, we have all these things, but am I really proactive in pushing the technology, or do I just do it because I have to? So, I think that's something for a lot of left brain people, like I used to be, 100% left brain, that we need to look inward sometimes and say, what is our real attitude towards technology, and does it need to be modified a little bit? So that's the message that I wanted to give you today. All right?